What is shaking, my dudes? Just following through on a request video from my good subscriber, Caden. This will be a two-parter as well, and you know what? I'm excited. This is going to be really good. And if we play our cards right, guys, this could be under 30 minutes. I'm very excited. This will be a two-parter, so I'm very excited for the next one as well, which will be a top 10 Sith. And, you know, I like my Sith, so looking forward to that one. This will be a top 10 of my personal favorite Jedi. It's all my personal opinion, so, you know, this isn't like, this is the way, and anyone who disagrees is going to get banned. Nothing like that. We're all going to be cool. Kicking off our list is the amazing Samuel L. Jackson as Mace Windu. Now, Mace has always been one of the cooler Jedi. And, you know, he's got a purple lightsaber. That's awesome right off the bat. But it's Samuel L. Jackson.
What? Say what again? Say what again?
One of my favorite facts about Mace Windu is that he uses a lightsaber form called Varpad, which I think is how you pronounce it. Don't quote me on that. But its whole thing is that you're on the light side, but you can channel the dark side without succumbing to it. I always thought that it was just an interesting what-if scenario if he trained to Anakin instead of Obi-Wan. Like, just imagine Anakin being trained to use his feelings and dark side, and using his anger in a more productive way. I really like Mace in the films, but I just have this, like, boiling hatred for him in the Clone Wars show. He's such a holier-than-thou, arrogant, for lack of a better word, asshole. Especially during that episode where Ahsoka's being framed for the murder.
Strength and resilience in your struggle to prove your innocence.
This is the true sign of a Jedi Knight.
This was actually your great trial.
Oh my God.
Now we see that.
Oh,
We
hell
understand that the
man.
Force
What
works in
fuck,
mysterious ways.
I'd really love him to return in some sort of capacity, because I know there were talks about Samuel L. Jackson coming back as, like, the bad guy for Book of Boba Fett Season 2. And I don't know if it's real or not. I hope so, but I've heard Bryce Dallas Howard and Samuel L. Jackson both talk about wanting to do it. So why not do it, you know? Because then you could have Boba come back to his, like, old, like, cold kind of mercenary he's supposed to be, you know, hunting down his father's killer. That could be what snaps him back into that ruthless killer we know he is. You didn't see that one coming, did you, nerds? Jaina Solo is an interesting case because she exists in Legends, which is the decanonized history and expansion of Star Wars universe before Dave Filoni and Kathleen Kennedy got their grubby little hands on the IP. Jaina is actually one of the 3 children of Han Solo and Leia Organa in the comics, as opposed to in the sequel movies where it's just Ben Solo or Kylo Ren. But the more I think about it, the more I think they've really just took what they saw in Legends and made worse stories for the movies. What I like about it is that she's like a mix of the original 3. You know, she's got Han's cockiness, she's got Luke's power, and the kind of grit that makes you go, yeah, that's definitely Leia's kid. And also, one of my favorite parts of the story is that her twin brother, Jason, has fallen to the dark side and is now known as Darth Caedus. Now, I may be getting the pronunciations wrong, I am sorry. So, naturally, she has to learn how to beat him, right? And there's only so much she can learn from Luke. So who does she seek to learn how to combat Force users? Only the best in the galaxy. The leader of the Mandalorians himself.
Surprise, motherfuckers.
Now, make no mistake, Boba is not a good guy in the comics. He's got reasons to be a bad guy, but he's still a bad guy. But then he becomes the leader of the Mandalorians. And so Jaina comes to him because he's like, in the comics, he's the expert on killing Jedi. Or Force users, technically. And he trains her how to fight, how to play dirty, how to do some certain tricks to confuse enemies, and that's what helps her defeat her twin brother. I wish we got that in the movies instead, because that's like the coolest storyline you could ever show. But no, we got Luke as a hobo. Anyway, Jane is an awesome character. If you've never read the expanded universe, please do. There's a lot of weird stuff in there, but Jane is one of the cool parts. 2 Legends characters back to back. Let's go, guys. Now, Revan isn't just awesome looking. I mean, look at that mask. That's awesome. I'm pretty sure I read that that's a Mandalorian mask that he took from a battlefield. Now, just to preface, I don't know a lot about Revan, but from what I've seen, he's awesome. And I really want to get into the Knights of the Old Republic games eventually, and really experience that firsthand and not just through playthroughs. But back in Legends, we had the Mandalorian Wars, and that was just a bunch of battles between Mandalorians and Jedi, which sounds awesome. But then it gets even more funnier when you realize the Mandalorians were going out of their way to use things that could not be deflected well against, like Jedi, for example. Like, that's why they started implementing flamethrowers, because what's a Jedi going to do at a burst of flame? And you may not know this, but there's things called slug throwers, which are just regular guns in Star Wars. What's a Jedi going to do when there's a shard of metal flying at you and you block it with your lightsaber? Good job, man. Now it's molten metal and it's going all over your body and burning you, you dingus. But Revan basically looked at the Jedi Council and with their whole let's wait strategy and said, nah, went full war general. Wins the war, falls to the dark side, but the twist? He doesn't stay there. He gets betrayed by his Sith apprentice, gets his mind wiped by the Jedi, and re-emerges as a Jedi again, proving that no matter how far someone falls, they can still get back up. Now, I personally call myself a Star Wars fan, but I wouldn't say I've indulged in everything Star Wars. Like, if you were to put a gun to my family's head and say, name all the characters from the Acolyte, I'd tell them I love them, because I don't know who any of them are. But I did hear that one of I think it was the main guy, I can't remember his name, but I heard Keanu Reeves was going to be playing him at one point. Or at least they approached him with it and he passed on it. And I think that was a very smart business move, because now that gives us an excuse to bring him back to play Revan in a live action show, which I think would be really good for people like myself who want to learn more about it, but maybe find the games like a little bit daunting. Like, not everyone can sit down and enjoy a game. Like, sometimes I get a little overwhelmed, I suppose is the term, when I'm getting into something new, so I got to really ease into it. And I think a show would be a good way to, like, bring a bit more love back to the Old Republic, because I don't care what anyone says, I am not interested in the High Republic. If I have to see one more character that's literally just a rock, I swear to God. I swear to God. I don't know if I can trust Lucasfilm to do a good job, you know? Like, if I have to sit through one more story about a Jedi that survived Order 66, set before A New Hope, I may actually kill someone. For legal reasons, that's a joke. I'm not going to kill anyone, but, you know, we're getting close. We're getting close. God, Star Wars Theory is going to be so mad if he sees my video. How dare you put Qui-Gon at level 7 and not level 1? How dare you? Well, probably 2, because I know Anakin's his favorite, but whatever. Look, if Obi-Wan was the sassiest Jedi, then Qui-Gon was the maverick, the loose cannon of the Jedi Order. He was the guy who straight up told the Jedi Council to take a hike more times than he could count. And I genuinely believe, if he was the one to raise Anakin, we might have actually saved the galaxy from the rise of the Empire. Qui-Gon is also the former apprentice of Count Dooku. Now, before he fell to the dark side, of course, which adds another layer of complexity to his character, I believe, you know. Despite being a bit of a rebel, you know, he's portrayed as like the most spiritually enlightened of the Jedi. And, you know, he was also the first to discover how to become one with the Force after his death. A technique even Yoda and Obi-Wan would later learn thanks to him. I mean, that alone just shows that he's got like a way deeper understanding of what Jedi were meant to be. I think what elevates Qui-Gon as a character that I like, and like puts him above the rest of the Jedi was how he was with Obi-Wan in The Phantom Menace. And, if you see my previous videos, I'm not a massive fan of that movie. But their dynamic in that movie is one of the saving graces. It's not just a master and apprentice, but also close friends, with like Qui-Gon acting almost like a father figure to Obi-Wan. And you can really see how well they work together throughout the film, especially with their fight with Darth Maul. They're like a well-oiled machine in combat, and there's a great moment in that scene where Obi-Wan takes a fake swing at Maul, giving Qui-Gon like the opening to strike. It just shows how in sync they are, that they can fake out together and they know what they're doing. And I love that we saw him in the Kenobi show. And honestly, aside from the Kenobi versus Vader scenes, or any scenes with Vader, that show just dragged so badly for me personally. But seeing him appear even briefly was such a highlight and a really like proper full circle moment for the journey of Obi-Wan. So I hope in season 2 he has a bit of a bigger role. He doesn't have to be in like every scene, every episode, but just as a presence, And I would kill for Anakin being able to see Qui-Gon just once if they have another crossover. I know, I just said earlier that I don't like when Jedi keep magically surviving Order 66. It invalidates Yoda's whole "when gone am I the last of the Jedi you will be" line in Return the Jedi. But Kanan is one of those very few exceptions I'll allow. Now, Kanan Jarrus is not his real name. His real name is Caleb Doom. And I like him. He's a very cool character. I think in the Rebels TV show, him and his partner Hera, they really carried when the episodes got really slow or when it just felt a bit too like kiddie, like a kid's show, which it is, but like it has moments where it's like, wow, okay. And Kanan brings that grounded, mature energy that just elevates the show, in my opinion. And look, if you want a hot take, my wife even prefers Rebels over Clone Wars. And look, I love Clone Wars, but let's not pretend that there weren't some terrible episodes in there. You know what? I agree with my wife. She's right. You're all wrong. Kanan's arc is also one of the only ones that shows a Jedi growing after the fall of the Order. He has to figure out what it means to be a Jedi now. There's no council, no war, just survival and responsibility. And his relationship with Ezra is kind of like Obi-Wan and Anakin in reverse. He doesn't have it all together, but he learns how to become the guide Ezra needs, and he just feels more human that way. And his death scene, oh my god. My wife and I, Jesus, when we watched that, I remember looking at my wife as it was happening, because I knew it was going to happen. I'll never forget that image is burned into my brain of my wife just looking at me so sadly, like, why did you make me watch this? I also love that he actually gets hurt and has to like relearn how to fight after Maul blinds him. I respect when characters can fail and grow and not just become like an instant master of learning how to fight again, There's nothing I hate more than a character that can pick something up and just be instantly good at it. Not naming names. No, I know the pitchforks are coming, and yeah, I know Ahsoka technically isn't a Jedi anymore, but she was for a bit there, and if I don't include her, my wife actually might kill me. I'm joking, she won't. She might, actually. She won't. Maybe. Anyway, Ahsoka has one of the best character journeys in Star Wars history. She's not just compelling because of what she goes through, but because she's actually genuinely well written and a bit of a laid character. I know a lot of people didn't like her at first, and look, I've talked about it before in a previous video. I get it. She starts out as brash and immature, but that's the point. She reflects her master Anakin in a lot of ways. But the connection really helps deepen both of their stories. The last 4 episodes of the Clone Wars are absolutely phenomenal. If you haven't seen them, or even if you're not a huge Star Wars fan, sit down and watch them. They're beautifully crafted, emotionally charged, and packed with some of the best storytelling in the franchise. Ahsoka's character really benefits from the later seasons of Clone Wars, when the series starts leaning a bit harder into the darker, more complex themes, and now it ends up making Clone Wars feel like a full-on cinematic experience by the time it's wrapping up. I also enjoyed seeing her in The Mandalorian a lot, because I like that they used a lot of that samurai inspiration for her outfit. And also, I know it's a little bit of a hot take, but I really enjoyed Ahsoka, the series, and I love that they bring in Baylan Skoll. Like, I feel like he contrasts so well against her, especially in a fight. You know, he's got this heavy, like, crusader knight-like presence, swinging with, like, weight and power, while she's, like, fast, agile, and precise. It's like watching a knight fight a samurai. It was beautiful, and it made it so interesting to watch. Everyone loves Kenobi, dudes. You all knew he would be on this list. I think my favorite thing about him is just how well he's played by both Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness. Like, they feel like their own versions of the character, but they still have their own twists, so they're easily separated, but they still feel like the same character, just in different times. I think what makes a lot of people love him as well so much is just his banter and his sarcasm, which is like dialed up to 11 in the Clone Wars.
Might have been able to do something about it if I'd had my weapon.
It was important for you to arrive without it, so your capture would be convincing.
Oh, they were convinced, all right. But how come I'm the one getting caught all the time? It doesn't look good.
When you're a Jedi Master, you can make the plan.
That's just it. How can I become a Jedi Master if I'm always getting caught?
At least you're a master at getting caught.
He just has so much personality compared to the other Jedi that he just oozes charisma, and it's so starkly contrasted between all the other Jedi who are like so serious and so, like, I suppose monolithic is the right term. They're just very stoic and centered, and then here's Obi-Wan cracking jokes. I also madly respect Ewan and Hayden, by extension, for how much training they went through to become, like, really good at actual, like, the lightsaber fighting. You don't really get that anymore. You know, especially if you watch the behind the scenes, they're going for it. I really hope we do get a bit of a better storyline in season 2 of Kenobi, because watching Obi-Wan become disconnected from the Force like Luke in The Last Jedi was just a bit rough, you know? We don't need 2 childhood heroes just giving up and being at their lowest points, you know? I think Obi-Wan was already at his lowest point in Revenge of the Sith after watching basically his son burn alive. And please, let's get Reva out of the show. I don't mind her coming back to the light side and all that, but her surviving 2 lightsaber stabs from Vader at 2 different points in her life is just a bit ridiculous, in my opinion. Now, just to be clear, a bit of a disclaimer, I am not choosing the sequels as my canon Luke Skywalker. No, I choose the Legends. And though I really enjoy Luke in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, I just can't look at the sequel trilogy. I've said before, it makes it worse seeing how awesome he is in these shows. And they know what they're doing. They know they're making him like he's supposed to be. And then sequels come, and then he's just some dingus, for lack of a better word. Now, in Legends, Luke becomes space god, basically. And you know what? I love it. It's cheesy. Do not get me wrong. Like, look at this guy. This is a genuine Star Wars villain from the comics. Can you guess his name? Correct, this is a Luke. That's with 2 U's, by the way. He's cloned from Luke's decapitated hand that he lost to Vader. And you know what? At least we get an explanation for how the saber and the hand get to that person, you know? In the sequels, it's just, oh, this is a story for another time. You know what? I prefer this one. I prefer Luke with 2 U's. He should have been the villain. I don't care. I did get a little sidetracked there, sorry guys, so back to normal Luke. My man goes ahead and marries the Emperor's personal assassin. She did all the jobs of the Inquisitors and still did a better job than them. And I was really hoping we could have seen her in the sequels as a part of Luke's story, but that's okay. And it's cool, you know. I like the fact that he has a child to carry on his legacy, and that goes on into like way later into the comics, like about 100 years or so, and he's still got like descendants still having stories, and that's fun and cool. Luke also trains to use the dark side in the comics and gets one of the coolest, albeit extremely 90s edgy looking outfit that like resembles Vader's outfit, and it looks awesome. The best part about Luke in the comics is his feats are amazing. He stabilizes a black hole with the Force, crushes a whole AT-AT with the Force, rebuilt the Jedi Order without attempting to kill his nephew straight away, and becomes a father. I think if Luke became not like that, but like an echo of that, you know, I don't mind in the sequels if they just made him like just a humble Jedi that just committed to the light side and didn't give up as much, you know? I mean, for Christ's sake, he's the son of Anakin. He's the son of the Chosen One. He should be, like, amazing with the Force. He should be this mythical figure that fights for what's right and actually tries to save his nephew. And not try to commit murder. But, you know, whatever. I'm not a writer for a reason. Okay, now Star Wars Theory is going to come after me. My boy Anakin at number 2.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
I think Anakin as a character was very, like, extremely unfairly judged on Hayden's acting. You know, I've said it before. I'll say it. God, I'm doing a lot of that this year. He's meant to sound like that. It's the actor trying to mimic Vader's speech pattern, which I feel is like, oh, okay, well, I understand now, so I actually kind of enjoy it now. Anakin, I feel, is just such a deep character. And you know what? I don't count Vader and Anakin as the same person. I like to think of them as like 2 halves fighting to control one body. And when the 2 work together...
You lack conviction.
What I personally love about Anakin is that his fears feel real. He's scared of losing his loved ones and is doing everything in his power to save them. I like that he also feels like he has to repress his feelings. That causes him to internalize this hatred and this fear. And that's what festers eventually into Darth Vader. I also think that the Clone Wars did a lot for his character as well. Not dissing Hayden, I think he was amazing. But there's just a lot more context given for what he had to face during the Clone Wars. It really makes you feel annoyed for him when he isn't given the rank of Master. But, you know, he's out there on the front lines a lot more than Mace Windu, a lot more than Yoda. He's the poster boy for the Galactic Republic, and he's being told he's not ready. Also, there has to be a lot of props given to Hayden for his lightsaber skills and, like, putting in the time to learn. And it was even so good in his reappearance in Ahsoka, they had to tell him to slow down because he was that good and everyone else just couldn't keep up with him. I think that's just a good example for how the disconnect is for, like, effort learning lightsaber battles and what they used to do for the prequels. Like, I like Ahsoka as the show, but you can definitely see it's like a bit slow at times, and the lightsaber fighting is just a little bit lacking. Surprise number 1! Bet you didn't see that one coming. Ka-chow, ka-chow. Now, I love Plo Koon. He's the best of the Jedi, and none shall change my mind. I mean, he barely got any screen time in the movies. I bet you don't even remember him in the movies most of the time. But the Clone Wars made him such a standout. There's just something about him that just commands that respect without ever needing to show off. He's like calm, collected, and genuinely cares for the clones under his command and everyone around him, his peers. He's genuinely a good person. He doesn't see the clones as disposable soldiers, and that just puts him ahead of way more of the other more famous Jedi. I also love that he's just not sitting around talking in riddles or being pretentious. He's just out there on the front lines, like Anakin, making tough decisions, leading with integrity, and just getting things done. His design is incredible too. I'm not usually a fan of the weirder looking alien races in Star Wars, but Plo's aesthetic, I like it. He's got like a battle-hardened vibe, kind of like, you know what he is? He reminds me if Tom Hardy's Bane was a good guy and a Jedi. He's got that cadence about him. And apparently the voice was also inspired by Gandalf, which I hear. I'm like, oh, I can hear it. One detail I absolutely love is that he's the Jedi who's discovered Ahsoka when she was young. He brought her to the temple, and that gives a bit of a different connection for her to Plo as opposed to her to Anakin. Like, Anakin's her master, absolutely, but Plo's like a mentor and a protector, maybe even like a father figure to her, you know? But more than anything, I think what makes Plo Koon my number 1 is that he embodies what I think a Jedi should be. He reminds me a lot of Qui-Gon in that way. He's just wise, compassionate, strong but not arrogant. And he doesn't get tempted by the dark side. He doesn't lecture people like moral authority in the galaxy. He just leads with a quiet strength, you know? And, if more Jedi were like Plo Koon, maybe the whole order wouldn't have crumbled the way it did. And one more thing that I like about him, he uses a light side version of Sith lightning. I don't know if you want to call it Jedi lightning, that sounds a bit lame, but yeah, I like that. With 2.5 minutes to spare, that's my list, my dudes. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Next video will be coming out soon, which is Top 10 Sith, and I am looking forward to it. Let me know if you agree with the list or if you disagree. If you feel I should include some others, feel free to sound off in the comments. I enjoy any time to connect with my audience and see what they think, you know? Until then, this is the T-Visor, signing out.